Matthew, you hinted at the Texans wide receiver trio, which can be a little difficult to decipher in fantasy. We know they're all going to matter because Stroud and this passing attack is just simply too good going into year 2. But with the addition of Stefon Diggs, the return of your guy Tank Dell, who looked great in his preseason return from injury, what order do you draft these guys, and how do you draft them?
The order you drafted them. I mean, I'm not holding fast and tight to this, but here's how I've ranked them. I've got Nico at wide receiver 12. I've got Diggs at wide receiver 19. Got my guy Tank Dell at wide receiver 25. But I think they're all going to be productive. I think they're all going to be fantasy viable this year. I think what you'll see is that I think it's going to be when they go two wide receiver sets, it's going to be Collins and Diggs. But I think that just the efficiency of Tank Dell, who, they're always going to take deep shots to Tank Dell. And so he doesn't need a ton of volume to be fantasy productive. Again, he had 6 games last year where he had 7 or more targets, averaged over 23 fantasy points per game. And, I don't know if you saw this. I linked to it in my 100 Facts column, which is up now on rotoworld.com. Of course, I'm a company man. Check it out. It's 100% free. But I mentioned this in my 100 Facts column. There was an interview that CJ Stroud did with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons has a podcast that he does with Bleacher Report, which is interesting. Jay, I don't know if you noticed it, but basically Connor left Bleacher Report and they replaced him with Micah Parsons.
It's just not entirely inaccurate.
Massive downgrade.
That's exactly. I agree with you. They're like, how do we replace Connor Rodgers? So let's go get the best defensive player in the NFL.
He's even on the draft show.
Yeah,
he technically did kind of partially replace me.
I'm just saying,
he's a way better edge rusher than you as well.
He is, and by the way, from what I understand, again, no disrespect, but I think he has a bigger house than you.
That's up for debate. Nobody has seen my new house yet. There's probably a good chance though he does.
I'm willing to lay good money on that.
Yeah, what are the odds?
Damar Hamlin type of price.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, be careful. Burn you once, Jay.
At any rate, on this show that he did with Micah Parsons, and I linked to it's actually great. It's actually fantastic. And so Micah and CJ Stroud, they go through this exercise where Micah drafts a defensive team of current NFL players, and Tank Dell drafts an offensive team, and they go through what they would do on a play, and it's actually fascinating. Both Micah Parsons and CJ Stroud totally nerd out on sort of football talk and strategy and theory, and it's great. But the reason I bring all this up is that CJ Stroud was basically, hey, pick any wide receiver you want in the NFL, and I believe it was Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, and Tank Dell. He didn't pick Nico Collins.
Now people kind of laughed at him and didn't miss the point of how much Tank Dell is his guy.
Exactly. That's my point. And we talked about, I interviewed both Tank Dell and CJ Stroud at the NFLPA rookie premiere last year, over a year ago. And both guys talked about each other. Tank Dell obviously went to college in Houston. And it's one of the reasons why Tank Dell, I kept talking in the preseason last year about, which I thought wound up being one of my best calls of the year. I had a lot of calls that worked out last year, but Tank Dell, I think was, you bet. Damn right.
There you go. Yeah. Take a lap in your head.
I might. Maybe I'll get up and do a lap here in my room, in my office at home. No, all seriousness though, we talked about it throughout the preseason. Tank Dell's going to be a thing. And he sure was until he got injured. But it was just, they talked about the fact that whether they were just chilling or they were playing Madden together, or they were working out in the offseason, they were just on the same page. They are very close personal friends, in addition to obviously having great on-field chemistry. So I don't know that I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but I almost feel like it doesn't matter, because I think all 3 guys are going to be productive, and there'll be weeks where one is more quiet, but I think they're going to go more 3 wide receiver sets. I think they want to be more balanced than they were last year, but still, I think second year in Slovic's system, I think the sky's the limit for all the Texans wide receivers, and Stefon Diggs in a 1-year prove-it deal where he's not going to see double coverage, where they've got to deal with Tank Dell taking the top off, where they've got to deal with Nico Collins. I think Diggs, hopefully gets on the same page with CJ Stroud, but I think Diggs still has something left in him, because first half of last year, he was still Stefon Diggs. He was still an elite wide receiver. I just don't know what happened over the second half of the year.
Yeah, I think the way that you would order these guys, I think that so right now Nico Collins is going as wide receiver 16, Diggs is 22, and Tank Dell is 26. I would say that I would have Nico as the clear number one guy. I just think he's the best wide receiver, the most talented player in that core. He was second in the NFL in yards per route run last year behind Tyreek Hill, top 3 in PFF grade. I just think that he is the best player, and he is clearly number one. And then I think Diggs and Dell, I just think that's a coin flip. And at cost, I'd prefer Tank Dell, because as much as it was an aberration, the end of Diggs' season, like, he is getting older. It wasn't great what he showed out there. He just didn't look like the same player. Maybe that was because he was unhappy in Buffalo, but I don't know. He just didn't look right. So I would just, if at cost, I think Dell is the option over Diggs.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.